Hi everybody, I'm Ryan. Today we're going to talk about the vintage metagame. Now with all my metagames, there's a little caveat that I only use the published lists, which means this is technically a winner's metagame. So this is from 5-0s in leagues, 4-0 and 3-1s in prelims, and top 32s in challenges. Let's jump into it. Now this is the vintage metagame. At the top, the very most popular deck is the paradoxical outcome decks, and then sharing second is split three ways, with the blue Tinker decks, the mono-white initiative decks, and the Oath of Druid decks. Let's talk about them. So blue Tinker is just one of those decks that plays like most restricted cards, plays all the mana rocks, it plays a lot of the blue draw cards that are kind of restricted, with the intention of tutoring out Tinker, casting Tinker, sacking one of the mana rocks, and then cheating something ridiculous onto the battlefield, something like Bolas's Citadel, or sometimes Sphinx of the Steel Wind, or something like that, and just winning the game with it. Now, they don't have to do this, though. They're very good at just like playing the mid-range game and controlling their opponent and drawing their deck. But that is the overall strategy, and they're very good at that. Mono-white initiative is a little bit of a pull from the legacy version, except they get to play the Power 9 Moxes and Black Lotus and stuff this time to cheat their initiative creatures out even faster than they did in Legacy before White Plume Adventurer was banned. And they just take advantage of the initiative mechanic in venturing through the dungeon very quickly, casting initiative creatures as early as turn 1, and is sort of like the Death and Taxes version deck in Vintage, where, they play a bunch of tax effects and then also just kill very quickly with their initiative creatures, taking the initiative and then never really giving it back. Oath of Druids is a really cool deck that controls what their opponent is doing, letting their opponent get creatures, sometimes even giving their opponent creatures, and then casting a card called Oath of Druids, where essentially what Oath of Druids says is that at the beginning of your upkeep, if your opponent has more creatures than you, or at the beginning of your opponent's upkeep, if you have more creatures than your opponent, that player gets to flip over the top card of their deck until they hit a creature and then put that creature onto the battlefield. So this is a deck that can cheat Atraxa onto the battlefield as early as turn 3 because they don't play any creatures besides their targets. It's very strong. And the most popular deck in Vintage is the Paradoxical Outcome decks. Paradoxical Outcome are kind of like the Tinker decks. They even play Tinker, except while they have that Tinker strategy, they give up a little bit of the mid-range plan that the Tinker decks do, and instead play Paradoxical Outcome and way more zero-costed artifacts. So they cast Paradoxical Outcome, return all their zero-costed artifacts, draw a ridiculous amount of cards off of Paradoxical Outcome, recast all their zero-costed artifacts. You probably drew another Paradoxical Outcome, and you're profiting because these zero-costed artifacts make mana. Cast another Paradoxical Outcome, draw a ton of cards, return all your zero-costed artifacts, eventually casting Bolas's Citadel and killing your opponent. Sometimes they kill with Aetherflux Reservoir too, which is kind of neat. But let's look at the top 8 metagames. So it's the winner of winners metagame. The winners are split 3 ways, with Mono-White Initiative, which we've already talked about, Oath of Druids, which we've talked about, and Squee Hollowvine, which is actually my favorite Vintage deck. So Squee Hollowvine is this really cool deck that really abuses Bazaar of Baghdad. Bazaar of Baghdad says, draw 2 cards, discard 3. Not very good on its surface. It does not produce mana. And you cheat things like the Root Wallas onto the battlefield for free, Hollow One onto the battlefield for free, Vengevine onto the battlefield for free, and things like that, while also discarding cards like Master of Death and Squee, which return to your hand at the beginning of your upkeep. So if you're doing that enough, then you often profit cards, and Bazaar of Baghdad just becomes, say, draw 2. Because you discarded the cards that are kind of going to come back anyway, which means you can cast things like Force of Will and Force of Negation and things like that. But that is the Vintage metagame. If you like this video and want to see more videos like this, please be sure to like and subscribe. Check me out on social medias. Links are above me and in the description. Thank you so much for watching. Check me out on Twitch as well. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.